Before SUVs and minivans took over, station wagons were the family car of choice.
Yo, my friend, stop it right there. Am I the only one to think that's a beautiful car? My friend, leave a like if I'm not the only one. I know you guys don't have wagons anymore. They are very popular here. And I look at this, I look, wow, this is a nice car, my friends. Am I alone on this? Today I'll be reacting to illegal now, but normal in the 80s. My friends, I'm super excited for this one. But before I go into that, let me ask you for one thing. If you can leave a like, thank you so much. It's the best way to show support. Now, if you can subscribe, well, in that case, forget about it. You make my day. Have that in consideration. Link for the original video in my description. And by the way, my friends, I have a lot of people that grew up on the 70s, on the 80s, on the 60s, sometimes on the 50s, so you can fact check those. Let's play it.
The late 1980s was a great time to be alive. There was MTV and Nintendo, but kids were still spending much of their time outdoors. This was a decade.
Okay, so it was the perfect era almost because you had the technology. Technology was getting really interesting, I think it's fair to say. But people also played a lot outside. This was a great era. I love the 80s. Even when I look at music, I love the vibe of the 80s.
And Nintendo, but kids were still spending much of their time outdoors. This was a decade full of unforgettable details that would never be allowed to happen in today's world. These things were completely normal. So let's take a look back at all the things we did back in 1988 that are now illegal.
Okay. Sorry, my friends, how crazy can this be?
In the 1980s, seatbelt use was more of a suggestion than a rule, and many people rode in cars completely unrestrained. Some drivers...
Okay, I have to ask it right away. Anyone watching remember seatbelt not being a thing? Please tell me in the comments.
resisted wearing.
I'm gonna run this part back. So since I'm alive, I'm a millennial. I think you guys put me on that category, even though I don't even like that. I'm a millennial, a Gen X. For me, that does not matter. But since I'm alive, basically, seat belts have been a thing. You know, I don't remember seat belts not being something that you have to do or you'll get in trouble.
In the 1980s, seatbelt use was more of a suggestion than a rule, and many people rode in cars completely unrestrained. Some drivers resisted wearing seatbelts because they were uncomfortable, and it was considered an infringement on personal freedom. However, studies from the late 1970s and early 1980s showed that wearing seatbelts reduced injuries and deaths in car accidents. New York became the first state to require seatbelt use in 1984, and by the
84? My friends, I believe I remember reading something about seat belts back in the day. Don't quote me on this, of course, but I believe a lot of countries started using seat belts on the 60s in Europe. So quite a big difference. But this goes into the personal responsibility, freedom of you know, the human, if that makes sense, because America really puts a lot of power into that. But this have been an obligation for a long time here. 84. I wonder if, since this goes state by state, if there is a state that, you know, I mean, nowadays I assume all states you need the seatbelt. But I wonder if until early 2000s, if there was a state that did not follow this. If you know, tell me, my friend.
New York became the first state to require seatbelt use in 1984, and by the early 1990s, all states except New Hampshire had a seatbelt law in place. But even after laws had been passed, only about half the population was using them on a regular basis. Not buckling up was common practice during the 1980s, but it is now strictly enforced, and hefty fines ensure compliance.
Oh, I had no idea about this, my friends. I mean, I knew that at one point, of course, seatbelts are not a thing, but I thought in America was a bit earlier, you know.
Cigarette vending machines were everywhere in the 1980s, found in
Wait, but those are still a thing here, my friends.
restaurants, gas stations, bowling alleys, and even hotel lobbies. These machines made it easy for anyone, regardless of age, to purchase cigarettes, often with
Okay, so this is fascinating, my friends, because the seatbelt thing, Europe ended up putting regulation very fast. The America, the opposite. Here, I think we flip the coin because you can still find those in Europe, you know. But I think smoking cigarettes is quite a problem in Europe comparing with America. But kids cannot assess this because if you go to a bar, a coffee shop, you enter and you most likely you will see one of those. But you have to unlock the machine, and for that you have to ask permission to the person that owns the the coffee shop, the bar, etc.
with no oversight.
Now, can the rules sometimes be a bit gray here? Yes.
Anyone, regardless of age, to purchase cigarettes, often with no oversight. As concerns over teenage smoking grew, efforts to restrict access to these machines increased. By the 1990s, many states had begun enacting laws to remove them from public places. And the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act of 2009 effectively banned cigarette vending machines altogether. Today, what was once a routine way to buy cigarettes is now nearly extinct, reflecting the larger decline in smoking rates and stricter regulations on tobacco sales.
You know what? This is a thing that I think Europe should copy because I never smoked, but I know a lot of people that smoke, my friends, and as you can imagine, this is devastating for your health.
The 1980s were the golden age of aerosol sprays, with products like Aquanet playing a crucial role in creating the era's iconic big hair. Deodorants, air fresheners, and spray paints were also widely used, without much thought about their environmental impact. That is until a hole in the ozone layer was discovered in 1985.
And now the ozone layer. The Environmental Protection Agency formalized a plan today that this country and 23 others agreed to in Montreal in September. A plan to freeze the production and use of the chemicals believed to be damaging the ozone layer, which protects us from the sun's dangerous rays.
And
you know what's crazy? When I was in school, the ozone layer was the topic, the most prevalent topic when it comes to, let's say, at the time, climate change, you know. But we don't talk about that anymore. Maybe this ended up having some effect because I remember studying this a lot.
Damaging the ozone layer, which protects us from the sun's dangerous rays.
And scientists linked it to the use of chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs.
By the way, I don't know the name of in English of this, but yeah, this type of product was common here also.
CFCs, found in aerosol sprays. In 1987, an international agreement was signed, leading to the global phase-out of CFCs. And by the early 1990s, most aerosol products had switched to safer alternatives. Today, the hole in the ozone layer is healing, and you don't hear much about it. And the popular aerosol sprays of the 1980s are a thing of the past.
Okay.
If you watched our last video, you'll know we teamed up with Legacy Box for a special giveaway. You can win a 40-item Legacy Box kit, a 1,000-item Photo Legacy Box, and a $250 Visa gift card. So watch until the end of this video, or scan this QR code now.
Thank you, my friend.
In the 1980s, most packaged foods had little to no nutritional information, leaving consumers unaware of how much sugar, fat, or sodium they were eating. People
Wait. Oh man, again, this is another thing that I grew up with. I always, not that I look at the package I buy, I have to be honest, but if you look, there in the back you have all the information. But at one point this wasn't a thing. Interesting.
Consumers unaware of how much sugar, fat, or sodium they were eating. People
So you have to gamble.
often made food choices based on taste and marketing rather than any health considerations. The rise in obesity and related illnesses in the 1980s and early 1990s led to increased demand for transparency in food labeling. This led Congress to pass the Nutrition Labeling and Education Act in 1990, requiring food manufacturers to include standardized nutrition facts on most products. By 1994, the familiar black and white nutrition label became a standard feature on grocery store items, helping consumers make more informed dietary choices.
So I bought a couple of American products, and for the first time I saw this label, and I thought, oh man, this is, they put this in your face. I mean, you can find this, of course, but it's not as big. I like, again, I like the way Americans are doing this. You know what? You want to be fat, at least you will know you will be fat.
Speaking of nutrition, the peanut butter
Ooh, peanut butter, my friend. This is a sensitive topic to me because I love peanut butter.
formed
Actually, I want to correct that. I love American peanut butter. I don't love European peanut butter.
dietary choices. Speaking of nutrition, the peanut butter sandwich was the ultimate go-to school lunch in the
In the
1980s, packed by millions of parents without a second thought. At the
Amazing.
time, allergies to peanuts were relatively rare, and schools had no policy restricting peanut products. However, as peanut allergies grew in the 1990s and early 2000s, the risks of severe allergic reactions became widely recognized. Schools then began implementing some safety protocols, but it eventually
Don't tell me they tried to ban the PBJ. Don't tell me that. Oh, man. Okay, sorry. Maybe that's not the point, but I closed the video, if that's the point.
widely recognized. Schools then began implementing some safety protocols, but it eventually led to a full peanut ban in many school districts across the United States.
What?
Dodgeball was a playground in the
Wait,
United
my
States,
friends.
but it eventually led
What?
to a full
Pause the video. My friends, what the hell is this? So at one point, peanut butter was illegal in America. Oh, now I'm looking at the kids right there, and someone ended up leaving me a comment that made my day, my friends. And leave a like if you also agree this was a beautiful comment. Someone said, makes me so happy to know that Santiago will be the only kid in school eating a PBJ. Because this will be true.
peanut ban in many
Yo, but now being serious, what the hell is going on here with this ban? Banning American peanut butter?
school districts across the United States.
I get the allergies, but come on, is the number really that big?
Dodgeball was a playground and gym class favorite in the 1980s, allowing
Yo, I thought this was a myth. Because I played a video game back in the day. The name was, guess what, Dodgeball. And I thought this sport was so aggressive. But this actually was a thing in America at one point.
kids to test their speed, agility, and throwing skills. While many students loved the game, others dreaded it, as stronger players often targeted weaker ones, leading to complaints of bullying. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, concerns over injuries and the game's aggressive nature led many schools to ban dodgeball altogether. Some
Wait, anyone watching ever played Dodgeball, my friends? Again, I knew about this sport, but I thought this never ended up being popular. You know, this is crazy. That's why Americans are so tough.
educators argued that the game encouraged physical intimidation rather than fitness, leading to it being banned from many curriculums nationwide.
Really?
In the 1980s, three-wheeled all-terrain vehicles became incredibly
I never saw anything like this.
popular for both recreational riding and utility use. Companies like Honda, Yamaha, and Suzuki marketed them as fun machines, making them appeal to riders of all ages.
Holy sweet potato, that looks fun actually.
However, they were unstable, caused by the single front wheel and high center of gravity, leading to a high number of accidents, mainly
Okay, I can see the point actually.
rollovers that resulted in serious injuries and deaths. As reports of accidents mounted, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission took action, leading to a voluntary agreement with manufacturers in 1988 to stop producing three-wheeled ATVs. While existing
This photo cannot be real, right, my friends? Because this is a dad with a baby, 2 daughters maybe, I'm assuming. This is not real, right?
models were not recalled, production shifted entirely to more stable four-wheelers that remain the industry standard today.
Yeah.
When I was your age, my dad shared a beer with me, and I thought it was about the best thing in the world.
In the 1980s, it was a rite of passage for some parents to let their kids have their first taste of beer. For some, it was just one drink, while others might get an entire can. It was kind of seen as a bonding moment, with some believing it would reduce their curiosity. However, research in the 1990s and 2000s showed that early alcohol exposure increased the likelihood of drinking problems in adulthood. At the same time,
Okay. I mean, I don't even know what to say about this one. I think there is a good chance that my family also gave me some wine, you know. But just for me to taste, ooh, I don't like the taste. I remember that. But this was kind of normal, you know, around families. But of course, the kid is not drinking alcohol all of a sudden. But I mean, if the science proves, I believe the science.
alcohol exposure increased the likelihood of drinking problems in adulthood. At the same time, laws against providing alcohol to minors became stricter, and what was
Okay, small sample, but I don't even like alcohol nowadays. So it's very rare for me to drink. And sometimes I drink because other people drink. I don't like the flavor. My friends, I know I have a lot of people that love beer, wine. I mean, it's okay. It's not my thing. I'm gonna be honest.
was once a casual tradition turned into a legal risk
Now, if we are talking about Coca-Cola, zero specific, that's an addiction.
to minors became stricter, and what was once a casual tradition turned into a legal risk for beer drinking parents.
Okay.
Pez dispensers were a beloved and collectible treat in
What the hell is this? Batman? Chewbacca? oh, I know the name of this in Portuguese, but I don't know if it translates the same. Cocas? Maybe, maybe not. Of course, Mickey Mouse, okay.
the 1980s, featuring fun characters and brightly colored candies. However, those tiny colorful sweets contained artificial dyes like red dye 3 and yellow dye 5, which later became controversial due to potential health risks. Studies linked red dye 3 to cancer in lab animals, prompting the FDA to ban its use in cosmetics in 1990, though it remained
Okay, that's a good thing. Can we all agree?
legal in food, which seems crazy. Yellow dye 5 was also criticized for possibly contributing to hyperactivity in children, and it has been banned in many European countries along with California. While Pez and other candies still contain artificial coloring, increased awareness of food dye risks has led some brands to rethink the synthetic colors they add to their products. Before SUVs and minivans took over, station wagons were the family car of choice.
Yo, my friend, stop it right there. Am I the only one to think that's a beautiful car? My friend, leave a like if I'm not the only one. I know you guys don't have wagons anymore. They are very popular here. And I look at this, I look, wow, this is a nice car, my friends. Am I alone on this? I know you guys love pickup trucks, SUVs and stuff like that, but to me, this is a beautiful car.
And their spacious
Maybe I'm alone. I don't know. I really love the look of the American, the vintage, if we can say that, old wagons.
and minivans took over, station wagons were the family car of choice, and their spacious cargo area made perfect play and nap spaces for kids on long road trips, with seatbelts being
Yeah, I was about to say, let me guess, no seatbelt there. Oh man.
made perfect play and nap spaces for kids on long road trips. With seatbelts being optional, children would often stretch out in the back and get comfortable. However, as crash studies began to show dangers, car seats and seatbelt laws became more strict in the 1990s. By the mid-90s,
Yo, but you don't have to ban it, the wagon automatic, you know, because we still have wagons. We just put seatbelts and some rules, and they are still beautiful.
all passengers,
Actually, my friends, if you guys want to see some of the most beautiful station wagons here, take a look at Mercedes, Audi, BMW. Of course, they are expensive, as you can imagine, but they make great stuff.
laws became more strict in the 1990s. By the mid-90s, all passengers, including those in the back, were required to wear seatbelts, bringing an end to the era of carefree road trip lounging. In the 1980s, fur coats were a status symbol, usually worn by celebrities or other fashionable
Leather.
wealthy women. Mink, fox, and rabbit fur coats were seen as luxurious. However, animal rights activism gained momentum later in the decade, with
This was the same year, but I believe more in the 90s. I remember this being a big topic.
Groups like PETA leading protests against the fur industry, and it brought widespread awareness to the issue. And by the 2000s, many fashion brands had stopped using real fur completely. Today,
Holy swag. I'm sorry, my friends. I know, okay, maybe not the best thing that is using animal. Okay, but I mean, looks good. You have to admit, the guy looks good.
faux fur and other ethical alternatives have largely replaced traditional fur coats.
This is the actor of Scarface, right? I forgot his name. Oh man, he's so famous.
Kids used to spend a lot of time entertaining themselves, and in the 1980s, they often did this by coming up with harmless pranks. Think prank phone calls, toilet papering houses, and even throwing eggs at homes and cars. Then came caller ID in the 1990s, making anonymous prank calls easier to track. At the same time, TPing and egging, once seen as mischievous fun, began to be classified as vandalism, leading to expensive fines and even criminal charges. And today, many homes have cameras to monitor their property, which deters pranksters even further.
People can't get over the change in me. I guess it's just that I feel so good about myself now. What happened is I went on a diet, and it worked. I took Dexatrim and I lost weight, and that really made me happy.
Dexatrim people, they not only try to lose weight.
Dexatrim? We trim people is something like this?
They succeed.
Dexatrim used to be one of the most popular ways to lose weight in the 1980s. It was a diet pill, promising some pretty quick weight loss results, without much effort. Dexatrim
The question is, my friends, this worked?
active ingredient was later linked to an increased risk of strokes, and in 2000 the FDA banned the chemical in diet pills and cold medications, leading
But I actually believe a lot of products to weight loss, they have that problem, because one of the easy ways to make you lose weight is to make your heart to, pump more blood. Of course, you can imagine if things go a bit crazy. But I think most products of this, when they work, they are on that base.
to the original formula of Dexatrim to be banned. Although it was reformulated, the risks associated with diet pills in general have made products like Dexatrim far less popular today. Recollection Road and Legacy Box both believe it's important to keep memories.
Is this just a sponsor, my friends? Yeah, it is. So show him all the support, of course. Great video. I mean, I had a lot of fun. I love to discover old America. Leave me a like if you also enjoy these videos that are a bit more nostalgic. Maybe we can watch one about the 70s or the 60s. Actually, this is for the ones that watch until the end. Leave me the number 7 if I should take a look at one in the 60s and in the 70s, because things may get even a bit more wild on those years. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. See you guys in the next one. Bye, my friends.